What if I told you that the most infamous financial scam in history wasn't actually invented by the person it's named after? And what if I told you that right now, today, people just like you are losing their life savings to the exact same scheme, just with a different face and a fancier pitch deck? Ponzi schemes have been running for over 150 years. And they keep working, not because people are stupid, but because the people running them are very, very good at making fraud feel like opportunity. Today we're going to break down exactly what a Ponzi scheme is, where it really came from, the most notorious examples in history, and most importantly, the specific red flags that will help you spot one before you become a victim. Welcome back to Hidden Wealth Files. No fluff, no filler, just the information you actually need. If you're new here, subscribe for weekly videos just like this one. Let's get into it. Let's start with the fundamentals. What is a Ponzi scheme? At its core, a Ponzi scheme is a form of investment fraud. Here's how it works. Someone approaches you, or you find them, with what sounds like an incredible investment opportunity. They promise unusually high returns in a short amount of time. The pitch sounds credible. Maybe they have a slick website, professional branding, testimonials from happy investors. Everything looks legitimate. So you invest. And for a while, it actually works. You see returns. You get paid. You're happy. But here's the truth behind the curtain. There is no real investment. There is no legitimate business generating those returns. The money you're receiving as profit is actually coming directly from the wallets of other investors who joined after you. As long as new money keeps flowing in, the scheme can keep paying out. Early investors get paid with money from later investors. Those later investors get paid with money from even newer investors. It's a cycle, and like all cycles built on air, it only survives as long as the momentum holds. The moment new investor money slows down, or a significant number of existing investors try to withdraw their full principal, the whole thing collapses. And when it collapses, the people at the bottom lose everything. The promoters disappear with what's left. Think of it like a house of cards in a windstorm. Impressive when it's standing, devastating when it falls. Here's where it gets historically interesting, and most people don't know this part. Charles Ponzi did not invent the Ponzi scheme. He just made it so spectacularly notorious that his name got permanently attached to it. The first recorded instance of this type of fraud goes all the way back to 1869, more than 50 years before Charles Ponzi was even running his operation. A woman named Adele Spitzer in Germany, and separately a woman named Sarah Howe in the United States, both ran schemes in the 1870s and 1880s that followed the exact same structure. Promise high returns, pay early investors with money from new investors, collapse when the new money runs out. But it was Charles Ponzi in the 1920s who turned this scheme into a household name. Charles Ponzi was an Italian immigrant who arrived in the United States with almost nothing and a powerful desire to become rich. After a series of failed ventures and even a stint in prison for fraud in Canada, Ponzi landed in Boston and hatched what he believed was a genuinely clever idea. His scheme was based on something called international postal reply coupons. Here's the basic concept. These were coupons that could be purchased in one country at a low price and then redeemed in another country for postage stamps at a higher face value. In theory, you could buy them cheaply abroad and redeem them in the US for a profit, a legitimate form of arbitrage. Ponzi pitched this to investors as a risk-free, guaranteed return. He promised 50% profit in just 45 days, or 100% profit within 90 days. In a time when bank savings accounts were offering maybe 5% annually, this was extraordinary, and people believed him. Money poured in. At the height of his operation, Ponzi was taking in over $1 million a week. That's equivalent to roughly $15 million a week in today's money. But the reality? The postal arbitrage barely worked at scale. The actual amount of profit those coupons could generate was tiny compared to what Ponzi was promising. So what was he actually doing? Exactly what every Ponzi scheme does, paying old investors with new investor money and pocketing the difference. His scheme ran for about a year when a Boston newspaper started investigating and financial regulators began asking questions. The whole operation unraveled rapidly. Investors who tried to withdraw found the money wasn't there. Ponzi was arrested, convicted, and eventually deported back to Italy. His investors lost the equivalent of hundreds of millions of dollars in today's money. He was not the first. But he was so brazen, so high profile, and so dramatically exposed that his name became the word we still use over a century later. If Charles Ponzi's downfall had scared off everyone who came after him, we wouldn't need this video. But these schemes didn't stop. They evolved. They got bigger, and in some cases, almost unimaginably large. The most notorious modern example is Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff ran what is considered the largest Ponzi scheme in history. He was a highly respected figure on Wall Street, a former chairman of the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. He ran a private investment firm that attracted wealthy individuals, banks, charities, and even other investment funds. His reputation was impeccable. His returns were consistent, too consistent, as it turned out. For decades, some estimates suggest nearly 40 years, Madoff never actually invested his clients' money. He simply deposited it into a single bank account and used incoming funds to pay outgoing withdrawals. When the 2008 financial crisis hit and clients rushed to pull their money out, there was nothing there. The scheme collapsed. The losses totaled approximately $65 billion, making it the largest investment fraud ever committed by a single person. Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison and died there in 2021. Then there's Alan Stanford, who ran a $7 billion scheme through fraudulent certificates of deposit from his bank in Antigua, and countless smaller schemes that never made headlines but destroyed the savings of ordinary families who trusted the wrong person. Ponzi schemes are not a relic of the past. They are alive, active, and operating right now. This is the most important section of this video, because information is only useful if you can act on it. Here are the specific red flags that should immediately put you on guard. Red flag number 1. Guaranteed high returns with little or no risk. This is the number one tell. Every legitimate investment carries risk. The higher the potential return, the higher the risk. That is a fundamental law of investing. Anyone who promises you guaranteed high returns with no downside is either lying or doesn't understand how money works. Either way, run. Red flag number 2. Suspiciously consistent returns. Real investments fluctuate. Markets go up and down. Even the best performing funds have bad quarters. If someone is showing you investment returns that are consistently positive, month after month, quarter after quarter, regardless of what the broader market is doing, that's a massive red flag. Bernie Madoff's consistent 10 to 12% annual returns, year after year, through bull markets and crashes, should have been a screaming alarm bell. For many investors, it wasn't. Red flag number 3. Unregistered or unregulated investments. Legitimate investment products and the people selling them are registered with financial regulators. In the US, that means the SEC. In the UK, the FCA. In Nigeria, the SEC Nigeria. Before you put money into anything, ask for registration documentation. Ask what regulatory body oversees the operation. If they can't give you a clear, verifiable answer, that's your sign to walk away. Red flag number 4. Secretive or incomprehensible strategies. If you ask how your money is being invested, and you get a vague non-answer, overly complex jargon that doesn't actually explain anything, or a response like, "It's proprietary, we can't share that," be very suspicious. You have every right to understand, in plain language, how your money is being used. If they won't tell you, there's usually a reason. Red flag number 5. Difficulty withdrawing your money. This is a major one. In a Ponzi scheme, withdrawals are the enemy. Every dollar that leaves the scheme is a dollar that can't be recycled to pay someone else. So operators will use every trick to prevent you from cashing out. They'll offer bonuses for leaving money in. They'll create complicated withdrawal processes. They'll suddenly have technical issues, or they'll pressure you socially to stay invested. If you encounter friction when trying to access your own money, treat it as an emergency. Red flag number 6. Pressure and exclusivity. Ponzi schemes often use manufactured urgency and a sense of exclusivity to override your rational thinking. This opportunity is closing soon. We only accept referrals from trusted members. You're lucky to even have access to this. These are psychological pressure tactics designed to get you to act before you think. Legitimate investments don't pressure you. They give you time to do your research. Before we close, I want to address something important, because there's a tendency to look at Ponzi scheme victims and think, how could they not see it? And I want to push back on that hard. Ponzi scheme victims are not stupid. Madoff's victims included sophisticated investors, financial institutions, and highly educated professionals. Stanford's victims included successful business people, who had built real wealth. These schemes work because they exploit fundamentally human psychology: the desire for financial security, the fear of missing out, the tendency to trust people who come with social proof and credentials, and the very human bias toward believing what we want to believe. The best defense isn't intelligence, it's process. It's having a set of rules you stick to, regardless of how good an opportunity feels. Ask questions. Demand documentation. Do independent research. Run it by a trusted financial advisor. And remember the oldest rule in finance: if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Ponzi schemes have been running for 150 years because they're effective. They tap into real human emotions, hope, ambition, trust, and turn them into weapons. The antidote is education and vigilance. Now you know what to look for. Share this video with someone you care about, because the best protection against financial fraud is community awareness. When we all know the red flags, the fraudsters have nowhere to hide. Drop a comment below. Have you or someone you know ever encountered what you think might have been a Ponzi scheme? I'd genuinely love to hear about it. Like this video if it brought you value. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you next week on Hidden Wealth Files.